welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Katie. I'm a full-time sketchbook artist, and today I'm going to be sharing some of my favourite supplies from this year and also talking about my creative resolutions for 2025. So I want to start by saying a huge thank you for all of your support on this YouTube channel this year. All of your likes and comments really mean a lot to me, and that inspires me to create new videos every week. It's been a pretty big year professionally because I did write my first book. So this is out next March 2025, but obviously this year was all about writing and getting inspiration and filling this book with all of my knowledge about mixed media and sketchbooking. If you haven't already pre-ordered, I'll leave a link down below. They really help authors, so if you haven't yet, I would absolutely love you to. It's a book all about sketchbooks, about mixed media, about different processes and layering. It's also got a section about projects, and I take you step by step on how to tackle specific scenes, and I can't wait to show you. I can't wait for you to get it in March if you have pre-ordered already. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart. So much love and work has gone into this, and so that has definitely defined my 2024. I've obviously been doing a lot of work and a lot of creativity went into this, but I haven't experimented massively in terms of my art. So in terms of my favourite art supplies, it is quite similar to last year. There are a few new things which I'm definitely going to mention, but I'm not going to mention everything. As a mixed media artist, I do use a lot of supplies, and I'm not going to mention every single thing that I use here. I'm just going to highlight a few of my favourites and the new supplies that I've discovered. I did film a video back in 2023 if you want to see my favourite art supplies from then. A lot of them are the same, so in terms of like my pencils, the luminants, those are still the same. My top colours like the anthraquinoid pink, the light cobalt blue, the olive yellow, they're all the same, and same with my Neo colours, so I'm not going to mention those today. Generally I do stick to the same supplies. I don't reinvent the wheel all of the time. I definitely have my favourites, and I talk about them a lot on my channel, so I hope I'm not repeating myself too much. I'm just going to mention a few of the ones that I've reached for the most this year, and I hope that you find it helpful. I always link my supplies down below, and I always have to put an enabling alert on these videos because you might end up with quite a big wish list, but I definitely recommend writing them down and seeing how you feel in a few weeks if you still would like to buy them. So with that caveat and ramble out of the way, let's begin the video. I'm going to start with sharing my favourite supplies from 2024, and then I'll move into the process where I use these supplies and talk about my creative resolutions. So one of the supplies I mentioned last year and still a favourite this year is acrylic markers. I really enjoyed filling those and creating my own shades. I shared a video last week about how I fill those to create my own perfect colours. I'm not going to mention them this time because I did mention them then, and also because I mix my own, so I can't just give you a link straight to that direct mix. But another supply that I've used acrylic based is actually acrylic gouache. So these have been really fun to use this year, and I don't know if I've used them properly. I know that I did get a few comments on the video where I shared about acrylic gouache. I'll leave a link up there in the cards and down below, but I just find them really fun to squish around. I do tend to use them more like acrylic rather than gouache, but there are 4 shades that I really want to share with you that I've found the most helpful. I've really enjoyed using these for backgrounds and smushing them with my fingers because I really like the texture. And I bought these when I was in Japan, but you can get these anywhere. They're by Holbein. This is their Artist Acrylic Polymer Gouache. I really love the shade Misty Green, Shell Pink, Naples Yellow and Coral Red. So these 4 I definitely recommend. I'm really glad I got these in the big tubes. I did also buy the pastel set, and you'll see that on screen now. I got this when I was in Japan, and I probably wouldn't buy this again. There's definitely been a few colours I've used more, but for me these 4 bigger tubes are the ones that I would highly recommend if you're looking to get into it. I feel like the shades are nice and muted, but they're still bright and vibrant, and I just think they're really versatile. There's a few from the pastel set I've been using a lot more recently when I've been doing my wintry scenes, and I've started to use a bit more lilac and purple, which is very fun. But yeah, I know this is quite a springtime, summertime palette, but that's definitely how my art usually vibes, I think, in terms of those seasons, so I definitely recommend these. Sticking with the gouache theme, I definitely think gouache is my comfort zone medium. I use it all of the time. I reach for it when I'm not sure what to use. I love Daler Rowney and I also love Winsor & Newton, but their designer's gouache is fantastic. I've picked out 3 colours here. Obviously I do use this a lot and it's probably not going to be any surprise to you, but I've just picked out top 3 and then a white, which is a different brand. But I highly recommend Oxide of Chromium. This green I use all of the time. I go through it the most. And if you saw my recent auction art supply haul, you'll know I've got plenty of gouache, and I'll also be sharing that with the people coming on the art retreat this year. So that's something else that's happening for 2025 is my first ever art retreat. I'm running it with my friend TJ Marsden, and we're doing mixed media in beautiful Portugal, which I can't wait to explore and just fill our sketchbooks. So I'll leave a link to that down below, but that's probably going to tie in with my creative resolution section. But gouache is always one of those supplies I recommend. So as well as oxide of chromium, I also highly recommend cadmium yellow hue. This one is Daler Rowney, these other two are Winsor Newton, but it doesn't matter, I find that I can intermix them fine. And then number 3 that I recommend is primary blue. This is just really good for skies. Obviously I could do a whole video just on gouache recommendations, but to pick my top 3, I think these are the most used and the most ones that I rebuy. And having said that, the one colour I use the most is white. However, I don't buy that in a designer's gouache because I do go through it so much, so I highly recommend this Pebeo Studio Gouache. This is in a bigger tube and it isn't as high a grade as a designer's gouache, but I don't find that an issue at all. I mix them together and I haven't seen any problems with that, so I highly recommend these. I did used to use the little glass jars, but I did find that got quite messy because you're dipping your paintbrush into it, so the squeezy tubes I think are better, and this is a really good one to use with my other gouache. Next up is a new supply for me in 2024, and it is the Humble Sharpener. So when I went to Japan for my honeymoon, I'd forgotten to take a sharpener with me, so I had to buy one out there, and this has been a godsend. It's really handy. It has a little compartment for the shavings, so it's perfect for plein air. I really like the Derwent Pastel and Charcoal Sharpener, but obviously that's just a normal sharpener. It doesn't have any compartment for the shavings, so it's not great for when I am outside and I need to sharpen my pencils because I don't want to just leave shavings everywhere. So this is great, and it was picked up on a whim because I needed a sharpener and I love it. So this is the Faber-Castell 9000 sharpener. It does have 2 holes, so it's got the standard and the jumbo, and that means the luminance fits really nicely, and I just really recommend it. It sharpens it to a perfect point. Haven't had any issues with breakages, and this has just been a go-to, and I'm really glad I picked it up. Another new supply for me this year were the Distress crayons. I do have 2 videos all about these, one which is sort of comparing it to other mediums like Neocolors, and another one where I'm using it to create art. But they are very soft, so they're quite different to Neocolors. I love Neocolor 2 pastels. I've talked about them a lot on my channel. Again, I've got a video all about that. And I did mention my favourites in last year's video, so I'm not mentioning them here, but they are definitely a go-to. And these are much softer and they are much more squishable. You can be really playful with them. I really like the textures that they create. They create really nice soft textures, and they are water soluble too, although they're not light fast. But for my sketchbook work they're absolutely fine, and I do find I'm more playful when I use them, which is something I'm always trying to strive for in my work. I'm not going to be buying any more of these. I feel like these 2 sets are perfect for me, so these are set 10 and set 8. I definitely recommend set 10 for more muted tones. There's a really nice range there. But I also really like how it works with set 8, so we've got some more lighter pastel tones. Definitely recommend having a look at my video, which I'll link, because the colours of the lids aren't necessarily accurate to the colour that comes out. But I think these are great. I really enjoy using them to build up different layers, but I'm not going to buy any more. I feel like this is me. These are my favourite colours and I'm happy with those. For my birthday this year, I received a set of Derwent drawing pencils, which I've absolutely loved using. I love these colours. This is the full set, so there's 24, so I'm going to share my top 3 that I really recommend if you don't want to buy the full set. But the colours are gorgeous and really suits me for my nature and landscape work. So the Derwent Drawing Chinese White, 100% my favourite white. I really recommend this. It's lovely and opaque. It goes over so many different things and it's just my go-to. So this is Chinese White 7200. One that I really recommend in your collection. If you don't buy any others, go for this white. There are some really lovely colours in here, so I do struggle to pick just 3, but the other one I want to mention is Olive Earth 5160. Really lovely green. It is olivey, so it's very warm toned, but it works really well with so many different other colours. And it's not too dark, it's a really nice mid-tone green, I'd say, but really lovely. And I do think this set is kind of missing a lighter olive green, but I pair this with my Luminance olive yellow and that works really nicely too. I really like the Solway blue, but I think my number 3 is going to be the Sepia Red 6110, just because I use this one more. This is really helpful for trees and adding darker areas into my nature pieces. I really love this because it's such a nice tone. It's quite dark, but it definitely has that red. Obviously it's called Sepia Red, but it's got that warmth, which I really like and I find lacks a little bit in some of my other pencil shades. So this brown is definitely recommended, and those are the 3 I'm going to recommend, but this whole set is absolutely gorgeous. And last but not least, for this section of the video, I'm going to talk about sketchbooks. Now, I've talked about these in last year's video. This is the Royal Talens Art Creations and the Strathmore 500 series mixed media sketchbook. I shared a video earlier this month where I ranked all of my sketchbooks from best to worst, and that sounds really harsh. Obviously, we are all different artists and we have different preferences, but for me, these ones were definitely up the top there. But I also discovered a new sketchbook this year that I've absolutely loved using, and that is the Pith Supply Cara Cara sketchbook. Now, I've been talking to Pith and quite a few friends about the paper, and it does seem like it can be quite variable. So I'm hoping to do a full video about the Pith Supply sketchbooks in 2025, because the Oro Blanco, I've made it very clear it's not my favourite paper, it's very absorbent. But the paper in the Cara Cara that I bought from a CasArt store is fantastic. And I've really enjoyed using this. I find that it takes loads of different mediums. I do want to do a review of this one because I am getting through it now and it's taking my mediums really, really well. But I just want to get clarification on the paper issue with Pith first. But I've used this with brush pens, I've used this with gouache and watercolour, and it seems like a really good all-rounder. It is a little bit pricier than the Royal Talens. It's definitely not as ivory toned either, but the Royal Talens I find is great for quicker challenges. So when I want to be really fast and I'm really not precious with my work, I just reach for the Royal Talens. And I'm a little bit more precious with the Pith because of the price tag, but it definitely takes wetter mediums better, and I love this one. It's a really nice size. I do want to get more, but again, with the paper stuff, I'm not sure yet. But this one is a really nice size. I love Pith as a brand because they are made in the UK and they're very sustainable, and I'll definitely be repurchasing. And then last but by no means least is the Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolours. And then last but by no means least is the Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolours. So I do feel like I am entering my watercolour era. These have been a great start for me because I was totally a beginner with watercolour, and I did mention the Art Nouveau palette, which is this one in last year's video. Then I went to Japan and I bought some more colours, so some individual pans, just to customise my palette. I've got another video about that. I'm going to be linking so many videos. If I run out of cards, I'll leave them in the description. But I love this palette and I love this paint. I have done a video all about the Gansai Tambi paints on my channel if you want more information, but it's kind of like a mix between gouache and watercolour. So for me, it was the perfect step from going from gouache into watercolour. I feel like 2025 I will move into the more professional watercolours, so I want to try some more tube watercolours, but for me these have just been really fun. The really big palettes mean I'm more playful and loose, and I've really enjoyed using watercolours this year. I recently got this bigger palette which I shared in a recent video, and I swatched all of those out, and some amazing colours. There are a few I want to swap out, so add in some more browns, but I'm really happy with this colour palette. And it's just such a nice paint to use. As I said, I am more playful and it really inspires me to be looser, and I've been getting a lot of use out of these this year. If you did want to buy individual pans to test these out, then the colours I recommend are the Ultramarine Pale, which is number 61, the Greenish Yellow number 48, I use that all of the time, and then the Olive Green number 54. For me, I use those the most. Those are the three colours I use for my landscapes. I love that Greenish Yellow. It does come out lighter and more yellowy than in the pan. And then I also use the white gouache with this, so it works really nicely with these watercolours. And although I do have some whites, it does get quite dirty. So the gouache in the tube really helps with that. So those are the best art supplies I've been using in 2024, and now I'm going to be using them to create a piece in my sketchbook. I'm also going to be talking about my creative resolutions in 2025. So I'm just getting my favourite art supplies out that I just mentioned. I'll be working in the Pith sketchbook with all the different paints and the mediums that I mentioned before. So there is quite a lot of wet media. Obviously we've got the different types of gouache and the watercolour. I did actually get out the wrong type of green, so I picked out the sap green instead of the olive green from my palette. But they are similar in terms of their mid to dark tone, but I just wanted to mention that because I didn't realise until I was editing. So you're going to see me create this landscape, which I'm going to try and use all of the different colours. I'll leave a link to the reference down below. But I also added in a few different coloured pencils, so I did include the Luminance pencils, which are my favourite ones. As I mentioned at the beginning, I don't include it in this video, but I will leave a link to the 2023 version down below. And although I don't use all those pencils, I just felt like I needed a few more shades just to create this landscape. So you'll definitely see me use the olive yellow and the anthraquinoid pink later on. So in terms of my creative resolutions and intentions for 2025, I do just want to touch on my 2024. As I said at the beginning, I do want to say a huge thank you for all of your support. It's been a really positive year and there's definitely been some huge highlights. I had my honeymoon in Japan and I obviously wrote a book which is published in March and I'm incredibly proud of it. It was a huge amount of work, so I'm really looking forward to having a bit more time this year in 2025. But I also suffered with quite a lot of imposter syndrome and doubt, self-doubt, and I think that comes from having such a big project. And I am quite a perfectionist, so I really wanted it to be perfect. And I am incredibly proud of this book. I really did put my all into it. I will leave a link to pre-order down below, but it's filled with how to sketchbook, how to fill it, loads of different prompts, loads of different projects, and I take you step by step through them, as well as talking about mixed media and ways to layer them. So I'm going to be talking about that in the next few months before it's published. But that really took up a huge chunk of time in 2024, and I think I stayed in my comfort zone. So I think it's linked with a little bit of burnout as well because of that huge project. And obviously when you're feeling a bit creatively stumped, you do stick to what you know. So in 2025, I really want to push out of my comfort zone and I really want to push forward in my work. And I think most of that will come down to just creating more. I tend to work in my sketchbook and create one spread and then I'll just close the sketchbook and move on. Whereas what I really like to do is fill way more sketchbooks, really be a bit more playful and just play with loads of different mediums, to spend a bit more time in my sketchbooks rather than doing sort of a one and done thing of developing ideas, testing something out and then really taking that and pushing forward with one little element. It might be a color palette or it might be a technique. But I really want to push myself with that. And I think creating more is definitely going to help, especially because, as I said, I'll have a bit more time because I'm not writing a book. And I think as much as I'm really happy with some of the work I've created this year, I don't feel like it's moved on very much. I feel like I'm kind of in a similar place as I was before. I'm tackling things the same way. And I just want to see what would happen if I test different things and see how that affects my usual style. So also linked in with that, with the whole creating more thing, is the art retreat that I'm running with my friend TJ in May. So that is May 2025. There are just a few spaces left if you have been interested in it. I think there's only 3 left. But we're going to be filling our sketchbooks in there. Obviously, we'll be teaching, we're doing some workshops on colour and light and shadow, and we're going out into the town and drawing there. So we're going to be really filling our sketchbooks and encouraging everyone to just create and draw. We're going to take our sketchbooks with us wherever we go. So we're really going to create lots on that trip. I'm really excited because we're going to be taking inspiration from each other and working very collaboratively with the other artists there. Lots of sharing sketchbooks and creating together, and I think that will really help push us out of our comfort zones and just really find that inspiration. I really think that we're going to come home from Portugal feeling like we just want to create so much, and I can't wait for that. So I'm really excited, and that's definitely going to be a huge highlight of my 2025. So pushing myself and others to just create and create more, use loads of different mediums. I'm really excited by the prospect of that. So I feel like I don't know where I'm going to go in 2025, and that's quite exciting because I do want to have that unknown. I don't want to stay safe. I want to try loads of different techniques. So the other thing that I want to do more of in 2025 is to draw more from observation. So I mentioned that in a recent video, and I really enjoyed doing that for a theme on my Patreon in 2024, which was just drawing from life. And I enjoyed it so much that I know I want to do that more. And I don't do it very often. I do generally go for references and work from those. So that also ties in with working plein air. I want to do more observational drawing in nature, so I'd like to go outside more and draw in the New Forest and really try and push myself there as well, because I don't do that very often as much as I enjoy it. And I also find that I don't love the work I create as much as when I'm in the studio. So trying to find the balance there. I love the feeling of creating outside, but I want to try and tie it in with the pride of the work I create inside, because I do feel like there's a difference. So I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully we'll have good weather and I'll be able to go out and just try and fill more sketchbooks with drawings from observation, because it does push your brain a little bit more than just drawing from a photo. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think drawing from life is a really good thing to practice anyway, and I'm not going to do it as like one set theme. I would just like to think about these things throughout the year. So I might do a check-in like halfway through just to see how I'm going with my goals, because I think checking in with myself would be really helpful, and maybe it's something you'd like to see too, even if it's a bit of accountability with me on how you're doing with your creative intentions. So I do call them intentions rather than set goals, because I think that it can really vary. It depends on how we're feeling creatively, and like one thing that we may do, like a specific project, can change our course. And I think that's a good thing. So even if it doesn't tie in with your goals, if that lights a fire in you, then to follow that. I think that's a much better way to do it than feeling like you shouldn't because it counteracts with your original goal. So that's how I'm going to see it. I'm going to start with these, and I might check in with you later on and have changed them, or it might have sparked something else. So I'm really open to it being like that, and I hope this has been interesting in hearing what I plan to do in 2025. I'd absolutely love to hear yours as well down below. I'm just putting on the few final touches on this landscape. I do like how this turned out. I do like the distance with that far lake and the mountain back there with the cooler blues and greens, and then the warmth from the olive yellow in the foreground. This one does feel, again, it feels quite safe for me, so I'm excited. Maybe I'll take this reference next year and see how differently I approach it, because I'm hoping it will be very, very different. I'm wondering if I'll be using more line or totally different colour palettes. Either way, I'm excited to see what 2025 brings, and hopefully you'll still be on the journey with me. I'm going to leave you with the final flourishes with this piece as I finish it off, but a big thank you for watching. Thank you so much for your support in 2024. A huge thank you to my patrons for allowing me to create these 3 videos every single week, because without them it wouldn't be possible, and thank you for watching. I hope you have an amazing 2025, and I will speak to you all really soon. See you later.